Alright, welcome to another edition of Ranking the Soundtrack. Like I said in the last video, we're moving on from the Mega Man series, or not quite. We're balancing the scale here and alternating between Mega Man games and games elsewhere. And I got several requests for Castlevania, so that's where we're going to go with this one. Much like the previous rankings, I'm just doing the stage themes, so no boss themes, no mini area right before the final boss, none of those miscellaneous songs. This is just the 6 level themes. And I know that I said there are 6 levels, but there's really more stages. Technically, there's something like 4 stages per level. We know that there's really 6 levels in this game. And I'll say levels instead of stages so as not to confuse it with their weird stage formatting. There are 6 of them, so I'm going to rank those 6 level themes. The one weird anomaly here is level 2, whose song appears twice in the game. It shows up in the second half of level 4, but they're going to be categorized separately. It's not going to be level 2 and level 2/4, whatever. There's 6 of them. Keep it as simple as possible. For the sake of practicality, I'm considering the first half of level 4 to be level 4 song on its own, and the second half, which was level 2's also, is just strictly level 2. So that makes things a lot easier to categorize. Quick disclaimer, this ranking is strictly my opinion. It's not to be taken seriously, and I would like to hear your opinions of the rankings themselves, or your own rankings. I do enjoy reading about what you guys like and don't like. So without any further ado, let's get on with the rankings. At number 6, level 4. So you only hear this song for half of a level. I don't know why that's the case, but it's probably just as well, because if they're going to cut short any song on the soundtrack, this is the one. It's pretty plain and plotting. You know, there's the pulsing bass riff and a fairly generic lead riff up front, and it just kind of stays in quicksand. It starts to pick up a little bit in the final section right before it loops back to the beginning, but it doesn't build toward anything and then goes right back to the beginning of the loop. I just can't get myself into it, and maybe the reason why they actually tacked on a whole nother recycled song for the second half is because while playtesting it, they felt like the song was dragging ass too much. I don't know. It's not a bad song or anything by any means, but it just kind of sleepwalks in comparison to everything else on the soundtrack. At number 5, level 6. Final level of the game. You usually want to save your most epic song for the end. I don't think they really do that here, but this is certainly a step up from level 4. I really like the drum patterns. They change up and really drive the song forward. The melody is alright, it's just kind of there, not too special, although I do like the little 3-note bar at the end of the first couple measures. I like the descending notes in a couple of spots, and I really like the breakdown at the end right before it loops back. It flows seamlessly and you actually kind of forget where the song begins. You know, that's another cool thing about Castlevania soundtrack, is that the songs are very full in terms of the writing and arrangements. There's usually at least 3 sections per song, so you're not just kind of going back and forth between 2 sections like a ping pong game or something. So the song has some cool parts to it, and it's got a really good flow, but I think as a whole it just kind of is what it is. You know, certainly, like I said, a step up from level 4's song. Everything in the top 5 here is definitely at a higher tier and becomes more difficult to break off and rank, but level 6 just kind of falls in this spot by default. At number 4, level 5. I mentioned earlier how Castlevania's soundtrack has full songs with several sections each, at least. This one's got quite a few of them, and even in each section, you're hearing at least 2 or 3 different patterns, not repetitious in the slightest. Even if it is a bit of a call and response kind of technique going on here at the beginning. That's a cool little dynamic that you don't see a lot of in video game soundtracks. For my money, though, the best part is the cascading notes in the third section. That's when the song hits its peak for me. There are little nuances that I like too, like the little bit of I don't know, it sounds kind of like the little pitch bender bar thingy that the keyboard has sometimes. I can't think of the fucking name of it. That's going on in there too in some parts that give it that kind of warbly sound on the sustaining note. So yeah, a lot of very cool bits and dynamics with level 5. You could make the case that it would have been a better fit for the final stage of the game, particularly those cascading notes that I mentioned earlier. Really just kind of give it that feel of finality that I didn't think level 6 really had. At number 3, level 2. The theme's so nice they had to do it twice, as this is the one that appears in the second half of level 4. I thought this was the best example of the more down-tempo, spookier, moody tracks on the soundtrack. It has a simple but yet very effective riff to project that moodiness. And on top of it, it's draped on top of a busy drum pattern, but not overstaying its welcome either. It's just keeping busy enough to balance the scale. And it changes direction quite a few times. It kind of succeeds where level 4 failed in creating a dreary, moody piece, but in this case, it holds your attention and it isn't so damn drony. The only pet peeve, I guess, that I really have with it is the intro section. There's like 2 measures that open up the track. It's like a slight variation of the main riff, but it has some different instrumentation behind it. You never hear from it again, and I really like that part for some reason or another, and I would have liked to have heard it more than once. At number 2, level 1. Of course, this is the most recognizable because it's the first level. What's very different about the Mega Man games that I had been previously ranking and Castlevania and really most video games with sequential stages as opposed to being able to select any order you want is the stage themes move in a very rigid sequence, 1 through 6, 1 through 8, whatever the case may be, almost like an actual soundtrack or album that you would buy. So level 1 is pretty much like the opening track, the one that you'll hear first, the one that oftentimes is picked as the lead single, and if this were released as an album, I'm pretty sure that level 1 would be the lead single to promote the album. It starts off with a bang. That riff is so infectious and inviting. It doesn't build into it, it just starts right off with it. It's the best hook in the soundtrack, and it's probably why it was chosen to start the game off, for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. It hooks you in immediately. It's a really short, by comparison, loop. I think it's maybe a half a minute long, but that first section, and really the end section too that finishes off the loop, that's a really good section too. So it's a very, very solid song. Certainly not the most complicated, but it's catchy as shit and iconic as fuck. At number 1, level 3. This one has some really strong dynamics between the sections. It maintains an up-tempo, adrenaline rush feel all the way throughout, but the riffs that lead the way alternate between following the beat and matching the timing of the beat and then turning around and going against the beat for the next section. I really dig when songs do that, because it's almost kind of like an illusion that things have really gone off in a different direction. The beat is fairly consistent, but the way the lead riff shifts gears back and forth, it's just a really cool route that they decided to take with it. I like every section in the song quite a bit, and it's probably why I ranked it number 1, because I find each part to be really strong. I think it's the most complete song in the soundtrack, and I think it had to be in order to not get tiresome quickly. A faster paced song is easier to get old fast because you're getting through the sections quicker. So you either have to cut the song shorter to prevent it from overstaying its welcome, or you add lots of sections to it so you're not hearing the same thing over and over again. And because this is a video game with an endless loop, there was no choice in cutting the song to a shorter runtime. You had to beef it up so you're not hearing the same pattern over and over again. And I think that's also a testament to how well the song was executed. So, quick recap of the soundtrack rankings. At number 6 was level 4, number 5, level 6, number 4, level 5, number 3, level 2, number 2, level 1, and number 1, level 3. And I just noticed, upon reading that off, that the last 3 levels of the game ranked at the bottom 3, and the first 3 levels of the game ranked in the top 3. And none of the numbers matched up with the ranking number. So, I mean, none of this was on purpose or anything like that. It just, the chips landed where they did, whatever. So what did you guys think? Do you agree, disagree, mix of the two? I'd like to hear what you guys think. And that will wrap up this edition of Ranking the Soundtrack. See you next time.